Hello, everybody. Today, I want to tell you how to be an apologist. I think apologetics is one of the fastest growing fields in theology. A lot of people love the limelight of apologetics. And so today, I want to tell you how to be an apologist. All right? So, becoming an apologetics, it's like kung fu. So I'm going to compare it to Mr. Miyagi style, all right? So the wax on and wax offs of apologetics start with studying the Bible. Obviously, apologetics is defined as the art of defending the Christian faith, because we're speaking about Christian apologetics, from attacks from outside the faith. There are other fields that we call polemics that deal with answering heresies that come up within the faith. So because apologetics is seeking to answer attacks or questions that are coming from sources outside the faith, and theology, Christianity is based on the teachings in the Bible, then an apologist must know the Bible. In addition to that, there are famous atheistic philosophers that have a limited understanding of the content and the context of the Bible. And because of this misunderstanding or this limited understanding, you will find that some persons will attack the content of the Bible or the context of the Bible, and they will come up with arguments that the Bible has contradictions or that the Bible teaches unethical things. And so to be an apologist, you must really have a good grasp on what the Bible teaches and why it's teaching that in that context, okay? Second wax on, wax off, study logic. Now, for those of you that know me, this may seem like a shameless plug because I am the logic teacher, but study logic. Why? Logic is the art and science of reasoning. The art and science of reasoning and reasoning well, all right? So you can reason but not reasoning well. And logic helps you to construct arguments. I don't mean the one where you fist fight with people. I mean the arguments that you will be presenting as an apologist. We're all presenting arguments, but some of us present really bad ones, and most of us don't know the difference between a bad argument and a good argument, even if we stumble on it. So you want to know how to construct good arguments so that your arguments are not easily toppled over. And two, you want to know how to deconstruct bad arguments. Have you ever heard someone say something and you just knew it was wrong, but you didn't know why it was wrong? And oftentimes what that makes you do, it makes you respond emotionally, not logically. So you say, you're wrong and I don't know why. But to be an apologist, you must know what is wrong with the argument. All right? So number 2, study logic. Number 3, it's getting better. Study philosophy. More precisely, start with the study of the history of philosophy. Philosophy is a long conversation. A conversation that, according to Western sources, started some 400 years before Christ, to the best of our understanding, okay? It's a long conversation. And throughout those many centuries, philosophers have been talking back and forth. And so what we have today are the modern answers to the ancient questions, the modern responses to the conversation that began years ago, centuries ago. So I say study the history of philosophy because you do not want to get the tail end of a conversation. You want to know where it started so that you can understand really what people are saying. Sometimes when you get the tail end of a conversation, you tend to misunderstand. Once you've studied the history of philosophy, then you can study philosophy topically. I'm going to say something about the history of philosophy. The history of philosophy is not often taught anymore, which maybe in another video I'll tell you why I think that is a conspiracy. But the history of philosophy is so central to the study of philosophy that if you don't understand the entirety of the conversation, the chances that you are responding to a misunderstanding is greatly increased. I think modern philosophers that do not study the history of philosophy, they don't even understand what they're talking about because they don't even understand the conversation. So study the history of philosophy, and then you can study philosophy topically. In the next few months, I will be putting out some videos about philosophy topically, not the history of philosophy. But in fall, I will start putting out videos about the history of philosophy. So if you have ever been interested in philosophy and you just couldn't get a good teacher, or you couldn't afford to go to a tertiary institution. All right. And then finally, all right, so weapons in your apologetics tool box, or your Mr. Miyagi Kung Fu. My students hate it because I say Mr. Miyagi for everything. I think I am Mr. Miyagi and everybody else is the grasshopper. But the fourth thing that you should study to be an apologist is the foundation of modern sciences. I said the foundation and not say study science, because we don't have all the time in the world to study everything and all knowledge and all scientific knowledge that has ever been invented up until this date. Nobody has that kind of time. And you do not have to. What you should study is the history of sciences, the history of sciences, which kind of sounds, it starts off almost like the history of philosophy, but science branches off from philosophy at some point. But you could literally study science up to the 18th, early 19th century and understand the foundational ideas upon which all modern sciences rest. Now, if you are trying to combat an argument that is based in science, you don't have to be an astrophysicist. If you know the foundations of the argument, you can deconstruct the argument without being an expert in that field. All right? So, to recap, how to be an apologist. Study the Bible, not just the content, study the context. Study logic. Study the history of philosophy, and study the foundation or history of modern science. The last thing that I want to say in this video is, do you have to get a PhD to be a philosopher, to be an apologist? It would help. It would help in the area of allowing other persons to be confident that you are an expert in that field. But in terms of the content, I don't think you have to get a PhD to start doing the work of an apologist. And in fact, all of these things that I told you that are needful to be an apologist, some of them you could study by yourself. The only exception that I think that you should not study by yourself is logic. You need Jody Ann. But I'm joking, I'm not boasting, I'm just joking, come on. But a lot of this you could study. So what is the point? The point is, don't let your limitations deter you from doing something you're passionate about. If you're passionate about defending the faith from attacks without the church, study. Have an answer. The Bible says that we should always have an answer for those that ask us about the hope that lies within us. So have an answer. So I am on this 2020 quest for the next great apologist. And I keep saying, I think it's one of you. And I want to be a part of your journey. I want to encourage you. I want to equip you. And so you're going to see me put out these videos where I teach logic, I teach metaphysics, epistemology, and it's going to get rough. But when you master that kung fu, when you master that wax on, wax off, you could take down a big opponent. All right? So take the journey with me. If that's not your calling, then it's not. But if it's your calling and God has called you to use your brain to advance the kingdom, then take the journey. I'm going to let you all know where my YouTube channel will be, and I will link it in Facebook, and you guys could just access it that way, because it's better for me to put these videos in YouTube and then you can access it that way. So thank you so much. Don't be afraid to use your brain and give God all the glory, okay? All right, have a good one.